Is PPP also used to measure inflation, purchasing power parity? See, this concept of PPP is used to measure, uh, actually, it is how you will differentiate the standard of living in different countries, right? So PPP in the reference of, if you are talking purchasing power parity, if I'm not wrong, you are talking in terms of purchasing power parity, or I'm referring to some other thing. Are you referring to PPP purchasing power parity or something else? Adit, what are you referring to PPP? Purchasing. Okay, purchase. See, purchasing power parity is something different. It is telling you about that with the limited resources, what will be your quality of life in a particular country, right? So it is not directly related to inflation, but it is actually, in a sense, you can say yes, it is telling you about the quality of life in given resources. So you can say yes, where life is costly, where it is costly to live in, right? In that sense you can say, but directly it is not related to inflation, right? To an extent you can say, but directly it is not related to inflation. It is telling you about the standard of the country, right? It will be discussed when we will discussing purchasing power parity, that what it is referring to. If you want to understand purchasing power parity, go Google Big Mac index, right? It will tell you that how countries are calculating purchasing power parity. They are looking for what is the cost of a big McDonald burger across the countries, even worldwide. This is the parameter to know the PPP concept. Any other question? Recapitalization of banks would be capital expenditure. Recapitalization of banks would be capital expenditure. Right. See, it is one-time expenditure. That's why it will be this capital expenditure. Right. So today we are going to discuss this deficit part. Yesterday we discussed that when a budget is balanced, surplus and deficit, right? So today we will try to understand what type of different deficits are there, and which deficit is important, which deficit component is considered by the government for policy point of view, and in day to day what type of deficit you are hearing across the newspapers, right? So even yesterday we were discussing one thing. I was telling you about something, the gap between WPI and CPI. Even if you have gone through today's newspaper, it is also expressing the same thing. The WPI is, I think, something 0.58, and CPI is again is moving northward. So there you can understand the in that any news article you will try to understand what we have discussed. Actually, by going through such news story, you come to know the what is actually happening practically, right? So so you have to correlate it in such manner, right? For example, if the news is coming about there is gap between WPI, yesterday we were discussing as a part of static part, and today it is coming in the newspapers as a dynamic part, right? So you must be aware of all these fundamentals, all these basics, because UPSC, because same story will be covered in the economic survey. Economic survey is nothing but it is telling you about what happened throughout the year in the economy, right? And the same thing is covered in the your this economic survey, and specifically examiner is looking for the same arguments which are the real reasons for all these changes. You cannot put it anything like that. You will be saying that there was growth in the manufacturing, this and that, because actuality is something different. So that's why it is necessary in economy, specifically I am telling you the economy, you must be aware of all the happenings going through across the economy, right? You cannot put it anything, right? Your argument should be sustained by the fact. So now coming to this part, government deficit. So first is revenue deficit. Revenue deficit simply means that your revenue expenditure is exceeding the revenue receipt, right? Nothing more to explain in this, right? So it is saying that yesterday we discussed that revenue deficit is very much harmful in the sense that you are using revenue for the purpose of day-to-day maintenance, right? That means you are not creating any asset through through this revenue expenditure, and hence that means yesterday we were talking about that you are dissaving, right? You are dissaving, correct? So revenue deficit is not a desire, and secondly, in the country like India, right, there is revenue deficit, right? We are having always we are always having the revenue deficit. That means our economy is not in the saving mode, but it is in the dissaving mode, right? This is the most important thing, fiscal deficit. This you have to understand, right? Now, try to understand this with. Now, what happened? That when we were discussing that if there is deficit, right? Then in case of deficit, what the government will do? Government will be borrowing certain money, right? And if the government is borrowing certain money, then what was happening previously, the government was taking that borrowing as a part of its income, right? But effectively what was happening, it was a liability on the government. So many years back, prior to this concept of fiscal deficit, what the governments were doing, the governments were counting their borrowings as a part of their incomes, right? But after a committee was set up, I think Sukhmo Chakravarti something committee, that committee came up with the idea that your borrowing cannot be a part of your they cannot be a part of your income. Right? They cannot be a part of your income. That means all your borrowings are actually your liability, right? So you have to understand this thing, that initially what was happening, that there is revenue deficit, and revenue deficit is being compensated by borrowing. Now, what the governments were doing, try to understand this concept. What the governments were doing in the past, that they were counting this borrowing as a part of their income, right? But actually it is not their income. It is actually their liability, right? Now, what they are saying, after that committee, they came up with a concept called fiscal deficit. Fiscal deficit is saying that whatever is the borrowing, right? All the borrowings will be counted as your liability. That means you cannot say your borrowings as a part of your income, which is more logical, right? So after that, now the concept is whatever is your borrowing, right? Whatever is your capital income. So capital income again can be a two part. For example, if you see capital receipts, so capital receipt again can be of two type. It, for example, if money is coming from disinvestment, and other can be any capital, for example, loan, right? This disinvestment is not creating any liability on the government, right? But this is creating liability on the government. So this loan part will be counted as a liability, while it will be counting as your income, right? So out of capital receipt, because initially what was happening, whatever is the capital receipt, it was part of income, right? That means disinvestment as well as loan by the government were counted as a capital receipt, and they were counted as an income. Now, after the concept of fiscal deficit, the government came up with, the government bifurcated these two receipts and counted it as liability and it as income, right? So now the concept is this loan is acting as a liability. So if you talk about fiscal deficit, you can also say the fiscal deficit is actually every borrowing of the government can be said to be your fiscal deficit. This is the first concept. So borrowing can be either, it can be at home, it can be abroad, right? It can be for private people. Any borrowing of the government is said to be fiscal deficit, right? So this is the concept of the fiscal deficit. Now, if you see, so gross fiscal deficit is actually total expenditure, right? Total expenditure minus revenue receipts, right? It is clear. Minus non-debt creating capital receipt, right? We have discussed that what is debt creating receipt and what is non-debt creating receipt. That means it non-debt creating receipt means which is not creating debt upon you. That means the disinvestment part. We discussed that there can be two type of capital receipt. One is, for example, this disinvestment, and other can be your loan. So non-debt creating means your disinvestment part receipt, because disinvestment part is not creating debt upon you. So here non-debt means the part disinvestment part, right? I have just taken the example for understanding. So non-debt creating means any capital receipt which is not creating debt upon you. So gross fiscal deficit is nothing but total expenditure minus revenue receipt minus non-debt creating capital receipt. It does not include anything which is your loan, right? So debt creating capital receipts are your loan. It is not subtracted from the total expenditure. Keep it in mind. Secondly, if you go for this other definition, as we discussed, that what can be the borrowing of the RBI. RBI can borrow money from either from net borrowing at home, right? That means, for example, if you are depositing money, small saving with the post office, PF, right? Any infrastructure bond funds which are released by the government of India, right? All these are said to be net borrowing at home, right? And borrowing from the RBI, right? As you have seen recently, the RBI has given dividend, and many times it is asking RBI to borrow money on the behalf of the government. And borrowings from abroad, right? It is clear, borrowings from abroad, extra commercial borrowings and anything on that part. It is so any gross fiscal deficit can either be understood from this definition one, or the definition second, which is saying that it is nothing but all the borrowings which we discussed, that gross fiscal deficit is nothing but it is the liability of the government, and liability of the government is nothing but it is the borrowing of the government, right? Primary deficit. See, for primary deficit, you should know one thing, that whatever we are doing, whatever the government is paying back, it is actually paying back all the accumulated debts, right? So accumulated debts, and you want to know the actual fiscal balance of the present fiscal year. So what will you do? That means the interest paid by you is against all the liabilities of the previous years, right? So that means if you want to know the fiscal deficit of the present year, so you have to subtract all the net interest liabilities, because it as said before, the money accumulated as SLR is not used by government, but here it is contrary. What do you think? But as said before, the money accumulated as SLR is not used by government, but here. No. Who said that government is not using SLR? What is SLR? What is happening in SLR? Can you explain me what is happening in SLR? Wait, let me complete it. I'll come to you, right? I'll come to you. Aditya, I'll definitely answer your question, right? By the time I think it will be clear to you. See, gross fiscal, because whenever you are counting the fiscal deficit, so there can be a probability. I'm coming to the whiteboard. See, for example, if you are talking about fiscal deficit, so fiscal deficit is taking borrowings for this year, right? It is counting all the borrowings, and this borrowing might be there will be some component which will be talking about the interest against previous liabilities, isn't it? Against previous year liabilities, and it will be having liabilities of the current year. Now you want to know one thing, that you are concerned only about the current year. That means if you subtract fiscal deficit minus this component, right? Interest paid, then you will be having all the fiscal deficit of the current year, and it is referred to as primary deficit. I think it is clear. So primary deficit is nothing but it is telling you the present financial year's liability, right? Now coming to the question of Aditya, he is saying that, as said before, the money accumulated is as SLR is not used by government, but here it is contrary. See, can you tell me what are the components of SLR? Aditya, what are the components of SLR? Anyone? In which yes, yes, got it. See, we are supposed to focus only one component, that is GSEC, right? Forget about gold and money. What is happening in GSEC? We are having an operation OMO, open market operation. So if a bank is investing money in government security, what it is doing, that means this is government and this is, for example, bank, and you are saying that government has given government security to the bank, or bank has purchased government security to the bank. On the other hand, what bank will do? Bank will transfer the cash to the government, and government will be paying interest to the bank. What is this? This is nothing but government is using the cash of the bank, and against using that cash, government is paying interest. That's why it is said that government is using that money of SLR. I think you got the point. Adit, is it clear now? Right. So this is, sir, primary deficit shows how much money is raised for non-interest purposes. See, you can say non-interest purpose, but more specifically, it is the liability of the current year, right? See, what I said, that, for example, if you took certain 100 lakhs of rupees this year, you borrowed, this is your total borrowing of the government, right? Now this 100 lakhs will be used for two purposes. One will be the interest liability, and this interest is nothing but the interest for the previous year liabilities. Keep in mind, previous year liabilities. For example, you took for the government took uh, 10 crore rupees loans, right, in previous year. So for that they have to pay loans of 10 lakhs rupees, right? But this 10 crore was for the purposes of the previous year. It has nothing to do with this year. And for example, 90 crores loans was taken for this year. For example, government has to develop certain infrastructure. So they took 19 lakhs this year, and 10 lakhs was taken for the last year liabilities interest. So they are saying that this interest liability is meant for the previous years, right? While this 90 lakhs is meant for this year only. So if you talk about, if you want to specifically know about the liability of the present financial year, what does that mean? This is liability of the previous year, but this 90 lakhs is the liability of this year only. So primary deficit is talking you about the liability of the current year, and it will be subtracting your interest liability for the previous years, right? So this is the idea of the primary deficit. So primary deficit is telling you only about, don't go into that interest, just simply primary deficit is only about the liability of the present financial year. When you are talking present financial year, definitely it will be subtracting the interest liability of the previous years, right? So specifically, don't confuse with the interest liability, only remind it in the term that it is the present year liability. That's it. I think it is clear, right? So this is all about your fiscal deficit, right? So there is nothing more in this, and this chapter is important. You have to go through only NCERT, and whatever B is given in the NCERT, please learn it verbatim, because UPSC is asking The same questions as mentioned in the this NCRT. Any question, or I'll start? I'll be starting planning today. So we'll be starting with planning now. Planning is basically, I don't think that actually previously when SI, sir, when we will study. See, FRBM is basically part of when we will discuss Finance Commission, FRBM, then we will discuss it in mains, right? Uh, we'll discuss it in mains, right? Uh, Planning in the context of nowadays, I don't think that UPSC will more focus on planning, because after this planning, after the coming of this Niti Aayog planning, the questions on planning commission, I don't think that UPSC is more interested in this concept, but you must be aware of the concept of the planning commission, planning, idea of planning. And yes, the question can be like in mains, that it can be like the relevance of planning in 21st century, and what is the changed model in case of planning for in the India, and are the developed countries not following the concept of planning? So what is the relevance of planning, right? So all these things can be asked, right? So previously the questions were being asked in the PT, like they were asking which planning commission was talking about which, what were the targets of the planning commissions, right? What is the rolling plan, right? So these questions were asked by UPSC. So, but yes, you should understand this concept of planning, what went, because until 1991, even not 1991, until this coming of Niti Aayog, we were dependent upon the concept of planning. Even now, if you talk about this Niti Aayog, what they are doing, they are still doing their planning, but the nature of planning has changed, right? So you must be aware of the different concept. For example, nowadays they are saying that initially it was directive planning, now they are saying it is indicative planning. See, such questions are asked by the UPSC, right? They can say that what is indicative planning, they can say what is perspective planning, right? Scenario planning, right? All these things can be asked by UPSC. I think indicative planning term was asked by UPSC. So these things you must be clear, right? So in this chapter, I'll just discussing you the concepts, uh, right? So yes, planning. In the concept of planning, if you see, right, if I start with NCRT, see what is a plan. If you talk about plan, so planning is nothing but every the country like India is a developing country, and we are having scarce resources, right? So plan is nothing but you want to attain certain objectives, certain defined goals with the allocation of scarce resources. This is the basic fundamental, that you are having certain idea, you are having certain goals, and you are asked to achieve all those goals by using the available scarce resources, right? This is the idea of the planning, right? So what happened, if you have gone through the history post independence, so at that time, or world history you might go, then at that time it was established that Soviet Union was doing good, right? uh, and why it was doing good? Because the concept of planning was there. So concept of planning in the countries like Russia and this China was somewhat different. It was basically more directive planning. So if you see the concept of planning in India, it is not so much of directive planning, right? It is said to be democratic planning. If you see in polity specifically, they are saying that it is Gandhian planning, you can say Nehruvian planning, socialistic planning. It was not so much of this directive planning, unlike this Russia and China, right? So if you have gone, if you, when you will go through world history, then you will come to know that in China, what was happening, they were having communes, and the government was forcibly executing all those things. But in the concept, in the case of India, what happened, that from the initial times, we were having this mixed economy, and private as well as this government was participating in the economic activities. Nehru was very much influenced by this the concept of planning in Russia, the then USSR, and because of that he studied most of the models, and that's why he concluded that the best is to go by the way of Russia, USSR, and that's why they adopted the concept of the planning, right? but it was, again, it was democratic planning. That means everybody will be provided the their proper space. Reason being why private player didn't participate at that time, because they were having less capital comparatively. They were not having so much of capital with them so that they can invest, right? Even if they were in their businessmen, but they were in numbers, right? So that's why government has to take the lead. And secondly, again, businessman is not again for charity. They were looking for example, initially all these banks were in the hands of the private people, right? So they were only for those avenues which were giving them the profits. Then why a private man, a private businessman will go into those areas which were undeveloped, right? So if you see those times during the time of Nehru ji, so at that time, most of the infrastructure developments were in the undeveloped region, right? What he called the temple of modern India, right? Any dams, right? Steel factories, right? These power plants, BHEL, right? So all these things were in the areas which were developing areas, undeveloped areas, right? So the idea was to develop all those regions which were undeveloped. So it can only be undertaken by the government of India rather than any businessman. But still, yes, the businessmen were allowed to participate in the economic activities at par with the government of India, right? So the basic idea of the planning was to use the available scarce resources to attain certain objectives. Now coming the question, what were the objectives of the concept of what were the objectives of planning? So the objectives of planning were, first was growth, right? I think it is very much discussed, so no need to discuss it. So the growth through the idea was to uh, promote capital investment and then leading to the infrastructure development, right? This was the idea of the growth. And the Mahalanobis was architect of the second five-year plan, right, which led to the industrialization. Even after second five-year plan, all the PSUs establishment took place after this. Mahalanobis is very much known for his this idea of PSUs. Second is modernization. See, modernization simply means it is about it. It was not only in terms of providing modern goods and services, but it was basically also about the social part, right? Modernization in the sense that basically it is more related to the developmental part rather than the growth part. That means you are promoting women empowerment, right? You are adopting the technologies. So if you can realize that India is the country which gave adult franchisee across the genders, right? There is no differentiation whether you are a woman, whether you are a man, whether you are poor, whether you are rich. Even the developed countries could not provide the same facility after their independence. They in the country like Britain, America, the women could got only even these blacks in America got the voting rights even after a lot of struggle. But it is not the case with India. In India, everybody acquired the voting rights even after the independence, right? So modernization means, even if you see this thought process of Nehruji at that time, he was to an extent modernist, right? For example, if you see his ideology, like establishing all the institutes like IITs, right? At that time, IIM, right? And all those things, it was an idea that to develop the scientific temperament. And if you see this directive principles, so directive principles are using this scientific temperament as a part of all those things, right? So that means the idea was to develop the scientific temper in the country, right? Self-reliance. See, the idea of self-reliance was, it is being said that the self-reliance was not appropriate at that time, but definitely there can be certain issues with this. There was idea of import substitution. It is actually self-reliance is said to be the import substitution. The idea is that means you are substituting the import. How you can substitute the import? You can substitute the import by disallowing the import. When you are not allowing the import to happen, what will you do? You can either you will develop all those things at your home, that means in your country, right? So what it will do, it will develop the industries which are producing your basic capital, huge machinery, right? That means you will have in-house production. So the idea was, at that time, the idea of self-reliance was to develop the local industries, right? Because at that time we were not having enough money to even sustain ourselves, right? Then how we can import the things, because we are not having so much of this capital with us, foreign capital with us. So we can't comment the decision for of those times, but yes, many economists argue that for example, we are talking about, we have discussed about Jagdish Bhagwati. Such economists are arguing that the decision of import substitution, or disallowing the import, or making the economy closed, right, till 80s, was a bad decision, right? It proves disastrous to the economy. So it can be debatable, but yes, you should understand that the idea of the import substitution was, you are disallowing imports so that your capital should not go outside India, because already there was less capital with the country. And moreover, by disallowing the imports, you are forcing, you are motivating local industries to develop, so that they can develop the huge infrastructure, huge machineries, right? So this was the idea of this self-reliance. Then equity. Can anybody explain me the idea of what is difference between equity and equality? Any idea? Any idea the difference between equity and equality? If you Google it now, so there is a very prominent picture. Equity is according to one's need. Yes, correct. See, equity is actually, for example, there is a very popular image. If you Google it now, so you will find that there is a playground. Equality is same for all. Yes. So there's a playground, and this is, for example, here is a playground, and here is also a playground. So equity is saying, try to understand. Let me have a glass cup of water, right? So equity is actually, this is equity. That means if you are having people of different heights, for example, this person is having the simple height this, so he can easily watch, and the person who is having more height is provided with less height of this stool. So now this person can see, and this person who is having more height is provided with the least height of stool. But in case of equality, all people irrespective of their height, that means the person who is tall will be able to see this, but a person who is not tall, these two people will not be in a position to see what is happening in this ground, right? So equality is providing same for all. Equity is as per the as per the need, right? So this is the difference between equity and equality. So see, the idea of the planning in India is about equity, right? It is not about equality. That means the government is of the opinion that the individuals should get the things as per their need, right? So this is the idea of the equality. Right. So coming to this agriculture and all those things, focus, first 5 year plan was directly focusing on agriculture. Then second 5 year plan was all about your this establishment of PSUs. And there's a model, Harrod Domer model. I'll explain it to you. This is the idea of Harrod Domer model. This model states that the growth is directly proportional to the savings and hence investment, right? This model talks that growth, because at that time growth was the only demand of the government, so they were saying that this model states that For growth, you should save more, and this saving will finally lead to the investment, right? So the idea was to save more, which will eventually lead to the investment. So if you see the present days, then still this model is relevant, right? Harold Domer model, if you see those times. So, and secondly, if you see the first 5-year plan, the focus was on agriculture. Still, the post 5-year plans, we are still struggling for agriculture. That means still we are talking about agriculture because we haven't even achieved stable 4% of growth in agriculture, right? Second 5-year plan was based upon a Mahalanobis plan. He was a statistician. Mahalanobis, right? He advised government for establishing the public sector units. And second 5-year plan onwards, the concept of PSU came into the being, right? So this is the basic idea of your 5-year plan, right? I don't think that land reforms we'll be discussing. Even land reform is the most critical, in the sense that First Amendment Act, you might be reading it in polity. First Amendment Act was done to achieve the idea of the land reforms, right? This is ownership and incentives. This land ceiling, all these things are part of mains. We'll discuss it in mains. Green revolution is also part of mains. Now coming to what has changed in the planning perspective. Debate of subsidies, this is not required. Yes, import subsidy I have discussed. It's now coming to the planning part in the present times. Textbook. Are you seeing this whiteboard? Is whiteboard visible? Okay, don't worry. See the whiteboard, because I am in a mood to tell you something more rather than textbook. I have only referred to have the basic idea that what should you know with reference to this textbook, right? In textbook, there is nothing, right? In textbook, only given is your the objectives of planning. They have given growth, equity, your modernization, all those things. Nothing else. Nothing else in the this your textbook, right? So now coming to the idea, what went wrong with the planning, right? We have to, that is some analytical part, and why we why we do away with the concept of planning commission, why we adopted the idea of the Niti Aayog, and what is the difference between the functioning of Niti Aayog and planning commission. That you have to understand. That is analytical part, right? Now, see what happened, that what went wrong with the process of planning. The idea of the government was establishing of PSU was actually it was an investment, right? And like every businessman, though the idea, they were having two type of objectives, social and profit. But after independence, it was more prominent, right? It was more prominent. This idea was more prominent. Unlike the objective after 1990s. Now after 90s, this idea has overtaken the idea of the social part. But at that time, the idea of social has overtook this profit idea. Now, at that time, the government was of the opinion that they are investing in the industry in the form of PSU. Then after a particular point of time, these industries will start giving them profits after a certain point of time. It was natural. But what happened, these industries did not, there were n number of issues related to these public sectors, and these issues resulted into losses, right? And these losses were compensated from the budgets. That means the overheads of the government, or we can say deficit, were consistently increasing. First thing, when, because see, these investments were already done, so it is not like that if today you realize that this PSU is sick means it is loss making PSU, so you can do away with the PSU instantly. You can't do that even after so many of years, right? Government it's still planning to sell the sick PSU, so such decisions cannot be taken in a moment, right? So despite the fact that the deficits were increasing, the public sectors were loss making, right? The government deficit were consistently increasing, right? The idea of the government was to make profits, right? But despite making the profits, the government has to give money from their pockets, from their budgets to maintain day-to-day maintenance in these public sectors. That means the government initially planned that these profits will be channelized to other programs, that is welfare programs, right? But what happened? There were no profits. That means to an extent the idea with which government starting the process of planning, this idea could not take place because these PSUs, which are supposed to be profit making PSUs, they start making losses. And instead of providing profits to the government, they took away the budgets from the government. That means making government more in deficits. That was the reason why government could not invest in the welfareistic part, right? That's why we were seeing that why these some economists are saying that the government should have gone for this plan, investing in the education or health part, because they were not having the money. They have already established the PSUs, that's why they have to maintain the PSUs, right? But despite that they were giving the profits, they were in the losses and they were eating away the resources of the government, right? So this was the most prominent problem with the planning. There are a number of issues if you talk about the planning process, because now talking about the exclusively planning process prior to 1990s, the process of planning of prior to 1990s is said to be directive, right? What is the meaning of directive? See, directive means that it is from the top, it is top driven, right? That means a person sitting in Delhi, Yojana Bhavan, this I am talking prior to 1990s. Okay? It has nothing to reference with nowadays. The person sitting in Yojana Bhavan or Planning Commission in 16 degrees Celsius of AC is taking decision about Rajasthan where temperature is in the range of 50s. Can this person realize the heat of the field? That means there was always gap between heat headquarter and field. These people were not aware of the ground realities, right? That's why in this government, in the previous government, UPA government, Kamal Nath, right, the ex-minister of MP, he commented that these planning commission people are acting as armchair advisor. This question was asked in UPSC public administration. He commented that probably these planning commission people are acting as armchair advisor. That means they are just sitting in their chairs, right, resting chairs, and they are advising without knowing the ground realities, right? And even in 1990s, if I can recall, I think Manmohan Singh or Rajiv Gandhi commented that these people are jokers, right? If I'm not wrong, he commented like that. That means these people are not aware of the ground realities, right? They are just directing the people in the fields that do this, do that, without having any a real picture of the ground, right? First thing. Secondly, this is the idea. If you see the planning commission ex officio chairman was PM, right? And it was chair this PM was, because PM in day-to-day affairs is not taking care of this planning commission, so the vice chairman in Manmohan Singh times he was Montek Singh Ahluwalia, Montek Singh Ahluwalia, the person who was having, who was most of the time wearing blue turban, right? So MS Ahluwalia, and so he was. So now see the functioning. This you have to understand very right. What was happening during those times? If you can recall the times, what was happening that a CM, because in polity you will understand there are two type of grants. One is discretionary grant, and another grant is I can't recall it. It is also constitute. There is one more grant, right? So discretionary grant is actually other grant is given by based upon the recommendation of Finance Commission, right? These are two type of grants which are statutory grant, correct? Thank you, Krishnakant. Right, statutory grant. So in the times of planning commission, this discretionary grant component was very much higher than the statutory grant. Despite the fact that this statutory grant was to be announced by the Finance Commission, which is a constitutional body. One more thing, this planning commission is a non-constitutional body. It was a non-constitutional body, right? So the grants given by at the recommendation of the planning commission was much higher than the discretionary. That means when a body is involved in granting the finances, naturally the value of that body will be higher. That means the value of the planning commission was far higher than this finance commission. Even there were certain arguments that the finance commission was for the namesake, right? No, it is not like that, but still the value of the planning commission in those times was very much. Now see, what was the basis of this this discretionary grant? This discretionary grant was 100% in depend upon the equation between the state political scenario and the party in center, or more specifically the vice chairperson, that is Montek Singh Ahluwalia. That means if there is CM of a state, this CM has to visit the house of this vice chairman. That means an elected person was visiting a non-elected person, a nominated person. Is it good sign for democracy? Not at all. In a democracy, it should be in the reverse. That means a vice chairman should visit the CM. It was humiliating for a CM who is representing a state. He is visiting a vice chairman who is a nominated person just for the grant, right? Even this issue was very much highlighted by Tamil Nadu CM Jayalalitha. Many times she was coming to Delhi and participating the meetings. She was only attending the first day of the meeting, and after it, she was always criticizing the planning commission for one reason or other. The same goes with the Mamata Banerjee. Even every CM who was not the in the same line in the same party at like center, they were always criticizing the functioning of the planning commission. And this person was always granting the discretionary grant based upon the political equation with the states, right? So it was happening. Now, after the coming of this Niti Aayog, so it was realized that they were not, and it was against the constitutional part, and no proper real cognizance, real ground realities were not taking cognizance by the planning commission. It was more bureaucratic, right? So these were a number of issues which were taking cognizance. Then came the Niti Aayog. So what Niti Aayog did? What is the difference between the Niti functioning of the Niti Aayog and this? So if you can see Niti Aayog, what Niti Aayog is doing, Niti Aayog is acting as an advisor, right? How? For example, if you see the functioning of Niti Aayog is saying, for example, it says that uh, it is releasing certain report with respect to health or education. So it is releasing a list and saying that Kerala is on top, right? Number one. And for example, UP is almost at the bottom. So it is asking UP that look, Kerala is doing good in terms of education and health. So it is better that you replicate this idea. Right? It is advising and it is providing a model, right? It is providing case studies and it is saying this, the person in ETI was saying that I will provide you full support by coordinating with Kerala. What was happening previously? This person was going to him, okay, please support me, right? And it was depending upon him whether he will support, but now he is coming to him. First thing. Secondly, what was happening previously? It was happening that this person, the CM, was visiting Delhi and he was approaching advisor, right? Oh, sorry, this planning commission vice chairman. Now it is not happening. Now this advisor, if you have gone through the this Niti Aayog chairperson, he is visiting the state capitals, right? He is going to the state capitals, and after going to the state capitals, he is talking to the CMs and advising them what can be done, right, for the betterment of the state. For example, if Niti Aayog is seeing that UP is good in managing the crowd, right? Crowd management. For example, UP manage Kumbh, right? So they are saying that it is a good case study which can be replicated in states like Andhra, right, where there are various issues because of this crowd mismanagement, right? So that means they are advising. Secondly, what they are doing, they have developed a pool, right? They have developed a pool of universities, intellectuals, right, and n number of people who can support. This pool is subject specific, right? While what was happening in the past, they were only IS. If you can, yes, one thing more, that in the second tenure of UPA2, the people from outside were invited. For example, Arun Maira, I think Harsh Mandar was also there, right? One or two names were also there. These people were invitees from even Montek Singh Ahluwalia from also outside. He was not a political person, right? So all these people were actually experts, right? So even the changes which there were also changes in the planning commission in the second tenure of the UPA2, right? They were almost working on the same theme which this Niti Aayog is working on, right? So Niti Aayog has come up with different concepts of planning, right? Now they are saying that it will be an indicative planning. Participative planning. What is indicative planning? Indicative planning is, for example, initially what was happening, the government came up with the idea, okay, you have to achieve, for example, they give the growth rate of this 4% to agriculture ministry. Okay, you have to achieve. They don't know how to do it, how to achieve, they don't know anything. They say, okay, do this. Now, in indicative planning, what these people are doing, if you see that prior to planning, prior to declaring certain goals, right, they are discussing with the people. Even if you see budgets nowadays, right, everybody, there are a number of discussions, right? People are, this government machinery is participating, everything is on public, on online platform, right? So that means it has become indicative, and the government is saying, okay, first they're inviting the people and asking, okay, what can be the targets, right? And then after discussing, after a lot of deliberation, they are deciding that it can be the targets. And now they are saying, the government is saying that we will be acting as a facilitator, right? You can ask us what help you require from our side, we will provide you all the help, right? So that means they are just indicating rather than this directive. Participative, it is clear. Indicative is nothing but participative. Even it is from the bottom to top. And if you see the functioning of the Niti Aayog, they are saying that this participation, all the plans are coming from below, right? They are saying that coming from a village, then they are being compiled at this district level, then they are at state level, right? So they are compiled at the state level, and then they are put before the center, right? And accordingly decisions are taken. Other concept is perspective planning and scenario planning. Perspective planning is nothing but it is a long-term planning. So if you see the planning models now, for example, if Hyderabad, I am not aware about Hyderabad, but there is a concept of master plan. So must, for example, if we are in 2020, so master plan will be of three types. It will be a sort of that master plan 2041, master plan 2035, master plan 2030, master plan 2025, right? So it is a master plan which is telling you about long term planning, that is perspective planning. It is telling you the plan of 2041, planning for 20 years, right? So perspective planning is nothing but it is a long term planning which is telling you about the long term plans, how these plans can be changed, what can be the um, what can be done to achieve these plans, and after every 5 or 10 years these plans are being analyzed, right? Scenario planning, right? This is a very new concept, scenario planning. Scenario planning is utilizing your these computer tools and all those things. What this is doing, scenario planning is doing, like for example, if the government has said that that we are having a target growth of 10%. For example, the government, if you see, the government is saying that by 2025, whatever it is, we will be achieving 5 trillion, whatsoever is the target of the economy, right? They are planning for that 24, 25, right? So they are saying that, for example, they said that we will be having for 2021, 22, they are saying that we will be having 10%. We are taking an example. Now, what will they do? They will say, okay, for 10%, they will be assuming n number of permutation and combination. For example, they will say they have assigned that, okay, agriculture will be doing at 4%, manufacturing will be doing at 6%, right? And services will be doing at 12%, right? Like this. Now they are saying what they will be do. Scenario planning says that this is ideal condition. This is ideal condition. That is, this is plan A of the government. Now government is saying, government is analyzing any scenario. They are also putting in any scenario. Now they say that there can be a scenario in which agriculture will growing only at 2%. Right? It can be a scenario, right? Then the government is ready with the plan B. This is plan B, which says that, okay, manufacturing must grow with 8%, services must grow with, for example, 14%. And again, they are saying that if it is the case that agriculture is not growing, again can be a possibility that manufacturing is again growing at 6% only. Then services has to grow at 16%. So the government is ready with the plan. For example, this is not only in the words, they are having the plan for this scenario, they are having the plan for this scenario, they are having the plan for this scenario, they are having the plan for this scenario. That which plan will be implemented in which case. That means if they are the situation is plan B, then they will activate this plan. If the situation is for plan C, they will activate this plan. If the situation is for plan D, they will activate this plan. So there are n number of plans as per the permutation and combination. And the benefit of this scenario planning is that they are ready with the plan. They are ready with the plan. That means they have nothing to do, but they have to just reactivate the plan, right? Plan A, B, C. They are, everything is in handy, right? So this is the benefit, that this plan is actually proactive planning, right? It is unlike the knee-jerk reaction of the plan. For example, if the government is having a plan for in the scenario when inflation in the agriculture is crossing 10%, right? That means they are ready with the plan. That means the moment inflation is crossing 10%, the government will be ready with the plan. Any of the plan they will reactivate, and so that they will not have any knee-jerk reaction, because they are ready with the plan. Okay, let the situation come, we will handle it, right? So this is the idea of your perspective, this scenario planning. So these are the changes after coming of the Niti Aayog, right? These are certain basics. So I think this is almost regular classes today are over, and in the meantime, I'll be taking, I think, one or two class for your basics, which you understand, which are required in the Saturdays, right? I will discuss with sir. Right, so I'll be discussing whatever basics is I will take the classes for LPG and capital market and this banking part, right? I'll definitely take the classes. and we'll complete most of the basics, right? So any query, because I think there is second class. Any query? Have you gone through the last year question papers? Are you going through, especially for pre? Which concepts in the news should we concentrate? So do we need to know about all 12 planning commissions? Okay. See, someone is asking, we need to know about all 12 planning commissions. See, not at all required. There are, for example, in one 5-year plan, it was like Garibi Hatao. It was, I think, fifth 5-year plan. I will give you detailed handout, which will be about the planning commission. There are 10 to 15 points which you all should know about, like this concept of rolling plan, right? I'll give you the handout in which it will be clear, or otherwise go through the planning part. And if you don't understand anything, ask me, or I'll explain in the next class, right? But now I don't think that it is required, but yes, 10 or 15 points are there. I'll give it to you, right? There's no need to know about that, what happened in which plan very specifically, because right now I don't think that UPSC is going to ask. Yes, for example, you must be aware that first plan was about agriculture, second plan was about this industrialization, and 66 to 69 was a rolling plan time. That I'll give you, definitely I'll give you. Krishna Kant is asking, which concepts in the news should we concentrate on in economy? See, for economy, I am telling you now, if see, don't make it complicated. I'm telling you very frankly. Simply, what you have to do, you find any news article, right? For example, just I told you that yes, today there was an article which was talking about what we discussed yesterday. I was telling you in the previous references, but it is still the situation that WPI is going southwards while CPI is going northwards. Still the situation is same. So any article which will be in any of the paper will be discussing the reasons for this. Right? What does it mean? It means you have just to follow any of the newspaper, any of the, because everything is constant across the spectrum, right? So anything related to, but it should be in your syllabus, right? That's why I said to you that please revise last year question papers and the syllabus. Until and unless you are thorough with the questions, you cannot know that what UPSC is asking. Right? That's what I'm saying again and again, that please follow last year question papers. It can only guide you better that what you have to go through. And with due course of time, you will understand that what UPSC is asking, why UPSC is asking, right? Discretionary grants are under the constitution, but how can non-constitutional body decide it? See, you were right, but at that time, that was the problem with the planning commission. Nah? That was the issue, that states were against this. They were saying that it is against the fundamentally your federalism, right? That was the only issue. That was against the concept, very much against this planning commission, that a non-constitutional body was a deciding factor, right? Which even finance commission was not in a position to do that, right? It was a very much argument for that. Any other question? Right, so please go through the last year question papers of PT, and even mains you can go through, but mains we haven't discussed, right? You can just understand, but we haven't discussed the mains, because when we'll discuss the mains, then only you will in a position to understand the things. And now please increase your this spectrum. Right now, read whatever you can read, right? If you are applying for 2021, then yes, you have to gear up. But those who are planning to, those who are in their first year, second year, or third year, those who are having time, please extend your scopes right now, right? Read anything, right? Anything, but subject it to the syllabus, right? Don't restrict yourself that I have to read this only, that only. For the time being, initially, You have to just grab the information, but it should be relevant information, right? Once you are thorough with the information, once you are having all the information, then only you will be in a position to correlate, interrelate, right, and understand the things, right? Because many of the students are saying, sir, I am taking too long to write. You will take long, right? Because initially you are not having enough resources with you, right? Because if you are talking about this anything, if you are talking about growth, then um, uh, until and unless you are knowing every aspect, first you have to understand agriculture, then infrastructure, industry, and number of things, right? Until and unless you are not doing knowing every part, then you will not be in a position to write the complete answer. That's why I'm saying first acquire the knowledge, right? Don't restrict. And the best part of the knowledge, how to acquire that, please read the newspapers, go through the newspapers, and whatever I have prescribed you in the first PPT, first class, please go through all those resources. And the best part is, please go through these Rajya Sabha TV debates, spotlight program, and newspapers. And initially, I always recommend to the students, even if you can give 4 to 6 hours to the newspapers, right? You should do that, right? Initially, at least for 3 to 4 months, right? You should do that. Any other query? Okay, thank you very much. If you are having any doubt, you can ping me one on one, right? And you can give me your answers which you are writing, right? You can do that. Thank you very much. Bye bye.